Hey guys, in this video we'll go through this official passage and the various associated questions. If you'd like, and I recommend this, you may pause this video, go through the passage and the questions on GMAT Club. I'll share the link along with this video and then come back and we'll go through the passage together. You can see how I go about a passage, see if your understanding is the same as mine, and also then when I take you through the questions, you can pause at the questions again if you'd like, see if your answer has changed, see if your understanding has changed, and then you can match your reasoning with mine. Let's get into it then. When asteroids collide, some collisions cause an asteroid to spin faster, others slow it down. All right. So when asteroids collide, they can either become faster or slower in their spinning. Okay, these are the two possibilities. If asteroids are all monoliths, it's an if condition. All right. If asteroids are all monoliths, what's a monolith? Single rocks. Okay. If asteroids are all one piece, undergoing random collisions, a graph of their rotation rates. Rotation rates, the rate at which they're rotating, the speed of rotation. A graph of their rotation rates should show a bell-shaped distribution. Okay, with statistical tails. So a bell-shaped distribution, I'm thinking in my mind, a bell curve looks something like this. And now they're talking about the tails, the leftmost and the rightmost portion. A graph of their rotation rates should show a bell-shaped distribution with statistical tails of very fast and very slow rotators. Yep. So it's the speed here from slowest to fastest. If asteroids are rubble piles. Okay, so this is a second conditional. The previous statement said if asteroids are all monoliths, single rocks, then all this would happen. If asteroids are rubble piles. Rubble piles. Wonder what this phrase means. Rubble piles. Rubble, junk, I guess a lot of small pieces, and piles. Okay, so not a single rock, but if they are a collection of small rocks. If asteroids are rubble piles, then what? However, so okay, then they would not follow the same thing. If they're not monoliths, if they're rubble piles, then there'd be some difference in their distribution. Let's see. The tail representing the very fast rotators would be missing. Oh, okay. So this right portion here, this one here would be missing. Okay. So I guess they're saying that if asteroids are rubble piles, then they don't spin extremely fast the way monoliths can. All right. That tail would be missing because, now we learn why that's the case. Because any loose aggregate spinning faster, any loose aggregate, rubble pile would be an aggregate. It's an aggregate of smaller rocks and it's loose. Then it's not like they are bound together by a strong cohesive substance, I guess. All right. So because any loose aggregate spinning faster than once every few hours. So if this rotation speed is faster than one rotation per few hours, then what? Depending on the asteroid's bulk density. So what depends on the density? Once every few hours. So exactly how many hours depends on the density. Okay, any loose aggregate spinning faster than this rate would fly apart. Okay, so I guess they're talking about centrifugal force or something like that. So if these rubble piles are spinning faster than a particular rate, then the small rocks will fly apart. Okay, so then the asteroid will not remain an asteroid anymore. That's why if asteroids are rubble piles, then the right-hand side, the fastest spinners, would not exist in rubble piles. Okay, so we've seen two conditionals thus far. If asteroids are single rocks, then it's a bell curve. If asteroids are monoliths, then also it's a bell curve. However, the right side, the right tail is missing. And we're given the reason. Researchers have discovered that all but 5 observed asteroids, all but 5. Okay, so what have the researchers discovered? That all asteroids obey a strict limit on rate of rotation except for 5 observed asteroids. So, 5 asteroids do not obey a strict limit, the others do. The exceptions, what are these exceptions? These exceptions must be the 5 observed asteroids. The exceptions are all smaller than 200 meters in diameter. Okay, so these are all small asteroids with an abrupt cutoff for asteroids larger than that. With an abrupt cutoff. So as soon as the diameter goes beyond 200 meters, then the rate of rotation is slower. Right? There's a strict limit on rate of rotation. These exceptions are smaller, and these exceptions, what must they be doing? They must be spinning at a faster rate. All right, it's not explicitly mentioned here. However, these researchers have discovered that all asteroids obey a strict limit on rate of rotation. So they don't rotate beyond a particular speed, except for these 5, which are faster. Also, we learn that these 5 exceptions are all smaller than this particular diameter. So they are smaller asteroids. And as soon as the diameter increases beyond this cutoff, then the speed is certainly lower. The rotation speed is certainly lower. All right. So, while not explicitly mentioned, it appears as though these 5 asteroids that have been observed must be monoliths. That's why they're able to rotate without a strict limit on rate of rotation. Because had they not been monoliths, had they been rubble piles, then they would have flown apart. The first passage overall is talking about asteroids and what happens to asteroids when they collide, and it's talking about the rates of rotation. While talking about rates of rotation, the passage is saying that if asteroids are single rock asteroids, then they can spin at very fast rates also. However, if asteroids are rubble piles, if they are a bunch of rocks close together, then they can't rotate beyond a certain speed, because if they did that, then they would fly apart. All right. In the end, we are told that there are these 5 observed asteroids that are smaller than a particular size, and these ones do not have that limit on rate of rotation. All right, let's get into the second paragraph now. The evident conclusion. Evident from what? Let's see if this is building on what's been talked about in the first paragraph. That asteroids larger than 200 meters. Yep, they are building on that. What about these asteroids? Larger than 200 meters across. Okay, so the diameter are multi-component structures or rubble piles. So not monoliths basically. Okay. So the evident conclusion that these larger asteroids are not monoliths agrees with recent computer modeling of collisions. Okay, so the larger ones are not monoliths, and this seeming conclusion, this evident conclusion, agrees with computer modeling. Okay, which also finds a transition at that diameter, a transition. What transition? Perhaps the model shows that less than 200 meters, smaller than 200 meters diameter asteroids can rotate faster beyond a certain speed, and the ones larger cannot. That must be the transition. All right, so what's the evident conclusion? That these larger asteroids are not monoliths. And this conclusion agrees with computer modeling. Okay, a collision can blast a large asteroid to bits. Sure. But after the collision, those bits will usually move slower than their mutual escape velocity. Okay? So a collision can blast, can destroy and then spread the asteroid chunks into bits. However, after the collision, those bits usually move closer than their mutual escape velocity. That's a new phrase here, escape velocity. However, this does seem in line with what we read initially, how they might fly apart. Okay, so the bits would not escape. They would move, they would rotate slower than the speed at which they might fly apart. Over several hours, gravity will reassemble all but the fastest pieces into a rubble pile. Okay, alright. So over a few hours, several hours, because of gravity, these bits that the asteroid got blasted into will reassemble. All bits? No, not all of them. The fastest pieces might not come back. The rest will all come back and create a rubble pile, which is also an asteroid, but it's not a monolith, it's a chunk of smaller bits. Okay? Because collisions among asteroids are relatively frequent, most large bodies have already suffered this fate. So collisions among asteroids are quite frequent, right? Every once in a while, asteroids get into collisions. And because collisions are frequent, most big asteroids have already been in collisions, have already suffered this fate. Not just been in collisions, what's this fate referring to? Perhaps what was mentioned in the previous sentence. So they get into a collision, they get blasted off into bits, and then because of gravity, the bits reassemble. Some of the fastest pieces perhaps don't, but overall many of them do. And then the asteroid becomes a multi-component structure. And also the speed, the rotation speed, remains usually slower than the speed at which the bits might fly away. Conversely, so converse to what? Let's see. Conversely, most small asteroids should be monolithic because impact fragments easily escape their feeble gravity. Why should most small asteroids be monolithic? We're given the reason that impact fragments. So the bits, let's say a small asteroid gets into a collision and then it gets destroyed into smaller bits. Then what? Because of feeble gravity, those fragments or smaller bits do not come back together to create a rubble pile. So that's why most small asteroids should be single rock monoliths. That's what the passage ends with. The second paragraph starts off with drawing a conclusion based on what the first paragraph talked about. The conclusion is that asteroids larger than 200 meters in diameter are rubble piles and not monoliths. And that conclusion agrees with computer modeling. Also, it tells us what happens when a collision occurs. A collision can shatter an asteroid into smaller bits, and then gravity can pull those bits back together to create a rubble pile. Some of the bits which are rotating at a much faster speed don't come back, but overall the asteroid continues in existence and the smaller bits are usually slower than the speed at which they might fly away. And since collisions are quite frequent, most of large asteroids would be rubble piles. On the flip side, the paragraph ends with the mirror image of this, that the smaller asteroids should be single rocks because their gravity is so weak that they won't be able to pull back the bits that might have got shattered after a collision. So if the smaller rocks got into collisions, they got shattered into smaller bits, the low gravity would not have been able to pull back those bits together, and so the asteroid that continues would remain a single rock asteroid. All right, we're done with the passage. Overall, the passage is talking about asteroid collisions and the size of asteroids, what happens when an asteroid gets into a collision, and how the rate of rotation is linked with the kind of asteroid, whether it's a single rock asteroid or a rubble pile, and how rubble piles do not have speeds of rotation beyond a certain limit, otherwise those bits would fly away. All right, let's get into the questions then. Here's the first one. The passage implies which of the following about the 5 asteroids mentioned in line 12? These 5 asteroids. Okay, let's go through that portion again. Researchers have discovered that all but 5 observed asteroids obey a strict limit on rate of rotation. So all except for these 5 rotate within a certain speed limit. These 5 rotate faster. The exceptions, all these 5 are all smaller than 200 meters in diameter. Okay, all right, let's get into the answer choices then. Their rotation rates are approximately the same. So their rotation rates are beyond the limit. However, is the rate of one asteroid equal to the rate of the other, equal to the third and the fourth and the fifth? No, we can't say that. They are above a certain lower limit. However, are their rates approximately the same compared with each other? We can't say that. The passage does not imply that all 5 rotate at approximately the same speed. Next answer choice, they have undergone approximately the same number of collisions. Number of collisions, nothing like that given. Right? How many collisions these 5 asteroids got into, we have no idea. They are monoliths. Yes, this works. The passage does imply this. We figured this out while reading the passage also. Why would they be monoliths? Well, because they do spin faster than a certain limit on rate of rotation. And we were told if asteroids are rubble piles, then they don't have that right tail, right? The tail representing very fast rotators is missing. So rubble piles do not rotate beyond a certain speed. So since these 5 observed asteroids rotate beyond a certain speed limit, they won't be rubble piles. They will be monoliths. This should be correct. Let's still go through the other 2 answer choices. They are composed of fragments that have escaped the gravity of larger asteroids. Nope, the passage does not imply this. Anyway, are they rubble piles? In all probability not. On top of that, fragments that have escaped gravity of larger asteroids, of other asteroids? Now, the passage never indicates this. They were detected only recently. Researchers have discovered. When did they discover this? Was it a recent discovery? There's nothing like that mentioned. So this is wrong also. The correct answer is C. The discovery of which of the following would call into question the conclusion mentioned in line 16? What's the conclusion mentioned? The evident conclusion that, all right, what's the conclusion? Asteroids larger than 200 meters across are multi-component structures or rubble piles. So the conclusion is if an asteroid is more than 200 meters in diameter, then it's a rubble pile. Or in other words, not a monolith. What's our objective here? The discovery of which of the following would call into question this conclusion. So if which of the following is discovered, would we start questioning this conclusion? Would we start doubting this conclusion? All right, let's get into the answer choices. Let's see. An asteroid 100 meters in diameter. So 100 is less than 200. Rotating at a rate of once per week. Does this lead me to question this conclusion? No, it's a small asteroid rotating at a slow speed. That's anyway possible, all that's fine. Is it leading me to wonder whether these large asteroids are rubble piles or not? Not at all. This one's wrong. An asteroid 150 meters in diameter rotating at a rate of 20 times per hour. This whole talk about the speed of rotation. Where was this mentioned in the passage? Right here. Right. In what context was this mentioned? Let's confirm that. If asteroids are rubble piles, however, the tail representing would be missing because any loose aggregate spinning faster than once every few hours would fly apart. Alright, so a rubble pile would not rotate faster than once every few hours. Alright. Option B is talking about an asteroid which is less than 200 meters and it's telling us that it rotates very fast. Sure, so this one could very well be a monolith, right? Asteroids more than 200 meters would be rubble piles and rubble piles won't rotate faster than once every few hours. However, what about asteroids smaller than 200 meters? Those could very well be monoliths and they can rotate at faster speeds also. So this one does not lead me to question the conclusion either. Third one, an asteroid 250 meters in diameter rotating at a rate of once per week. 250 meters in diameter, so certainly more than the limit here. However, rotating once per week, so the rate of rotation is quite slow. So that can obviously happen. Does this lead me to question the conclusion? Not at all. Fourth one, an asteroid 500 meters in diameter. Yep, larger again. What about this asteroid? Rotating at a rate of once per hour. Now, if I discover such an asteroid, if I discover a large asteroid rotating at this fast speed, then I will start to wonder whether this conclusion holds true. Then I will start to wonder whether asteroids larger than 200 meters are rubble piles. Now let's make sure we get this. Why will I start to wonder this? Because of two things. One, rubble piles, the first paragraph tells me, do not rotate beyond a certain rotation speed limit. Why is that? Because if they did rotate faster, then the bits would fly apart. And two, so if now there is an asteroid which is more than 500 meters in diameter and it's rotating at this fast rate, then what? Then it has to be a monolith. However, the conclusion is that asteroids larger than 200 meters across are rubble piles. So for an asteroid of this size to rotate at this rate, this asteroid must be a monolith. And then if this 500 meters asteroid is a monolith, then the conclusion gets questioned. The conclusion is that asteroids larger than 200 meters are rubble piles. And that's why D is correct. Okay, last one. An asteroid 1000 meters in diameter rotating at a rate of once every 24 hours. So a large asteroid rotating at a slow speed, that's fine. Right? This doesn't lead me to question the conclusion. Such asteroids can very well exist with this conclusion remaining valid as well. So E is wrong. The correct answer is D. Now, in order to answer this question, it was extremely important that we understood exactly what the conclusion is. And also, we understood how the first paragraph is related with this conclusion. The first paragraph talks about speed limits on certain types of asteroids and how rubble piles cannot rotate beyond certain speeds because of some reason, right? How the bits would fly away. And therefore, based on all those, the author goes on to conclude in the second paragraph that asteroids larger than this particular size are multi-component. And if we then learn that an asteroid which is 500 meters, so definitely larger than 200 meters diameter, rotates at a rate of once per hour, then that asteroid cannot be a rubble pile. Why? Because if it were a rubble pile and it rotated at any rate faster than once every few hours, then it would fly apart. However, this one is rotating, so the bits are not flying away. So it won't be a rubble pile, it has to be a monolith. And if this large asteroid is a monolith, that does lead me to question the conclusion. All right, let's move on to the next one. According to the passage, which of the following is a prediction that is based on the strength of the gravitational attraction of small asteroids? So which one is a prediction based on strength of the gravitational attraction of small asteroids? So we read about gravitational attraction of small asteroids towards the end of the passage. Small ones, especially in the last sentence. Most small asteroids should be monolithic because impact fragments easily escape their feeble gravity. Aha, so gravity is feeble. All right, so what can be predicted on this basis? Let's get into the answer choices. Small asteroids will be few in number. Can we predict about how many small asteroids there will be based on the strength of gravity? No. We don't know anything about how many small asteroids there are. Second, small asteroids will be monoliths. Aha, this is interesting now. Is this a prediction that is based on the strength of gravity of small asteroids? It is. Why is that? Let's read the last sentence one more time. Most small asteroids should be monolith. Why? Because impact fragments easily escape their feeble gravity. So, even if a small asteroid got into a collision and got shattered into smaller bits, those small bits would not get assembled back together into a rubble pile. Why not? Because the gravity will be very feeble of those small bits. And that's why small asteroids will be monoliths. B is correct. All right. C, small asteroids will collide with other asteroids very rarely. See, now there are two things here. Do we anyway know about the rate of collision of one small asteroid with another? We don't. How frequently does one small asteroid collide with other small asteroids? We don't know that. On top of that, even if, let's say, there were some such information about collisions of asteroids with other asteroids, would that be based on the strength of the gravitational attraction of small asteroids? That's another question that we need to ask. Right? So C is wrong. The fourth one, most small asteroids will have very fast rotation rates. Most small asteroids will have very fast rotation rates. Now, we can very easily fall into this trap if we're not careful. What we know from the passage is that if an asteroid rotates at a fast rate, so if the rate is high, then the size of the asteroid will be small. However, can we say that if the size is small, then the rate of rotation will be high? No, we can't say this. There can very well be small asteroids also which have slow rotation rates. So can we predict that most small asteroids will have fast rotation rates? We can't predict that. The reverse holds true. Most asteroids with fast rotation rates will be small. However, is there a link between the size leading to what rate it might be rotating at? No, there isn't. E, almost no small asteroids will have very slow rotation rates. Aha, this answer choice is actually very similar to the previous one. While there might be some nuanced difference in terms of, for example, in option D, it is possible that all small asteroids will have very fast rotation rates, right? Most basically is more than 50%, so no upper limit. Almost no establishes some upper limit. Apart from that corner case, however, D and E are very similar. E, almost no small asteroids will have very slow rotation rates. So the same reasoning applies here as well. We know that if the rate is high, then the size will probably be small. However, if the size is small, does that mean that the rate of rotation will be high? We don't know that. Therefore, E is incorrect as well. Now, let's say you got attracted to option D or option E. A test taking technique here can be, there can't be two correct answers, right? It's a multiple choice with exactly one correct and four incorrect. And that could have led us to understand that, in that case, D and E would both be wrong. How can these two answer choices, which are so close, both be correct? At that point, even if, let's say, you realize that D and E are both wrong because they're so close to each other, it's not just about moving on to the other answer choices. It's about spending time first understanding why are D and E incorrect, and then getting into which of the other three is correct and why did I miss that in the first place. For this question, the correct answer is B. Now, one nuance that some of you might have wondered about, the last statement says most small asteroids should be monolithic, whereas option B is much more direct than that. Small asteroids will be monoliths. So it doesn't leave room for that possibility like the last statement does with the word most. How come B is correct then? Well, that's where we need to be clear about what the question's asking. Which of the following is a prediction that is based on the strength of the gravity? So, is option B a prediction that is based on the strength of gravity? Yes, it is. Is it a prediction that will be 100% accurate? We don't know that. It will be very close to being 100% accurate. Exactly what's the accuracy percentage? We don't know. However, is it a prediction? Is it a logical prediction that is based on the strength of the gravitational attraction? It for sure is. And therefore, option B does answer the question that's been asked perfectly. B is the correct answer here. The author of the passage mentions escape velocity, line 22, in order to help explain which of the following. Let's read that statement. A collision can blast a large asteroid to bits. But after the collision, those bits, what bits? The bits that were broken away, the bits that were a part of the asteroid earlier. But after the collision, those bits will usually move slower than their mutual escape velocity. Move slower than their mutual escape velocity. What does this mean? They will continue to rotate. However, they will rotate at a rate that is slower than the rate at which they would fly away. That's what escape velocity, I guess, means, right? They talk about how if these asteroids spin faster than a particular rate, they would fly apart. So this is what I understand escape velocity to mean. And this statement here is telling us that those bits will usually rotate a lot slower than that once every few hours rate. And so they won't fly away. All right. Why does the author mention escape velocity? Let's get into the answer choices. The tendency for asteroids to become smaller rather than larger over time. No, this isn't telling us about how the asteroids get smaller or anything. They could remain big, in fact. Typically, after the collision, those bits will usually move slower. So, the size of the asteroids overall will not necessarily become smaller. And in fact, the rotation speed will become such that not a lot of parts would fly away. So no, A is not correct. The speed with which impact fragments, those bits, the speed with which impact fragments reassemble when they do not escape an asteroid's gravitational attraction after a collision. What's this answer choice talking about? the speed with which the bits reassemble. So what do we know about that speed? We know that over several hours, gravity will reassemble. However, does the author mention escape velocity to explain this speed? Does the author mention escape velocity to explain why it takes several hours for those bits to reassemble? No. This answer choice is talking about the speed with which the fragments reassemble. The time it takes for the bits of the asteroid to come back together, create that rubble pile. This is not why escape velocity is mentioned. This has got nothing to do with, escape velocity has got nothing to do with this particular speed. This answer choice is wrong. C. The frequency with which collisions among asteroids occur. Does the passage mention escape velocity to explain the frequency of collisions? Do we know the frequency of collisions? Well, we know that collisions among asteroids are relatively frequent. So we know something about the frequency of collisions. However, does the frequency of collisions have anything to do with escape velocity? At least not given in the passage. C is incorrect. Fourth one, the rotation rates of asteroids smaller than 200 meters in diameter. Smaller than 200 meters in diameter. Does the author mention escape velocity to help explain the rotation rates of smaller asteroids? So these small asteroids rotate can rotate fast. Not all of them, but they can rotate fast. So does that have anything to do with escape velocity? No, nothing like that given in the passage. D is incorrect. The last one, the tendency for large asteroids to persist after collisions. Aha, this fits in. The tendency for large asteroids to persist, to continue to remain in existence, even after collisions. So a collision can blast a large asteroid to bits. However, even after the collision, it's not like the asteroid has ceased to exist. What happens after the collision? Those bits usually move slower than the mutual escape velocity. So they move at a rate which is slower than the rate that would cause them to fly away. And that's why those bits can reassemble with the help of gravity and then again function as an asteroid. So indeed, this is why the author mentions escape velocity, to explain the tendency for large asteroids to continue to exist even after collisions. E is indeed the correct answer. For this question on GMAT Club, B is the most common answer. Not only is it the most common incorrect answer, but it's the most common answer overall. Many more people have selected B than have selected E. So let me explain the option B one more time. The key to understanding why B is incorrect lies in understanding what the option means. The speed with which impact fragments reassemble when they do not escape an asteroid's gravitational attraction after a collision. So what's the speed with which impact fragments reassemble? The speed is over several hours. What's the question? The author mentions escape velocity in order to help explain which of the following. Does the author mention escape velocity to explain why it takes several hours for those bits to reassemble? No, nothing like that. Escape velocity is just to tell us about the rate of rotation of the bits. So speed, yes, but speed of rotation, not the speed of reassembly. The word speed might attract us to this answer choice. However, this answer choice is not talking about the right speed. This answer choice is not talking about the rate of rotation. This answer choice is talking about the speed with which fragments reassemble. and escape velocity has got nothing to do with that. Hope the explanations made sense. In case anything is unclear, please leave a comment. I'll try and get back.